Hello everyone, today I am looking at I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. This is a really cool, interesting game, and I believe it's based on a book. And so the game kind of revolves around how you... it's the far future, and essentially humanity has all been wiped out, except for about... 5 different people, and they're all kind of in control of this one AI called Am. And Am is, it opens up the game with his famous monologue, which is about hatred, saying how much he hates humanity, and even if every square inch of his computer network spanning an almost nearly infinite quintillion, miles of code, it would be ingrained with hate on every single piece. And so, So Am hates humanity. So instead of wiping it out, he keeps the last 5 in this kind of virtual, never-ending hell, which includes torture devices like daggers and laser beams and electric fences and all this stuff. And so as the last 5 humans, he sends them into these weird simulation worlds. And so each of the 5 characters, you kind of deal with their story, their past, their identity, and getting their backstory and understanding why they have regrets in their past life, and who they were, and how they ended up here with Am. And so you have one guy that kind of looks at this dystopian kind of town, another one that is based around he's kind of has this monkey-like attitude, and he goes into this village of possibly cannibals, and they're sacrificing people there, and so you have to kind of find a way to stop that. Another one is this woman who goes through the kind of tech and IT department, and so she's being haunted essentially by this memory of this rape that she experienced through the and apparently the guy was wearing yellow as one of the construction workers, and so she has a phobia of the color yellow. And finally, you have Nimdok, who goes to the Auschwitz, gas and torture chambers of World War II. So even though these are all sort of simulations, each one of them has a different kind of fear or dystopian phobia that it kind of tackles. And so in a way, it's almost kind of like Silent Hill. There are definitely a lot of puzzles that you have to unlock. It's a point-and-click adventure game, and so you have to end up talking to a bunch of NPCs, clicking around the environment, finding objects and items that you can use to solve puzzles and also negotiate with other people. However, on the other end, there is also essentially sort of the circuitry of the world that, all these worlds that you've been sent to by Am are fake worlds. And so you can find sort of, things that are behind the veil, things that allow you to manipulate the real kind of world and kind of get out of this simulation. And so eventually that's how the end game, begins. You have to do each one of the characters, each story is about maybe a couple hours or so. And once you've solved all the puzzles, talked to all the NPCs, then you can finally do the kind of final mission where suddenly all 5 of them are kind of assembled outside the simulation and in Am's mainframe. And then you kind of have to do the final puzzle and organization. Again, really here, the gameplay is not really the biggest part. Yes, there are puzzles, and yes, there is, a bit of, moving around the environment, but this really is kind of a literary piece that is brought to life through video games. And so you kind of have to... And so really the game is held up by its narrative, its characters, and its dialogue. And some of them are pretty... interesting, especially when some of them kind of don't want to admit their past wrongs and their sins, and they kind of are confronted or forced to confront their past doings and sort of reconcile their own nature as humans in this humanless world. Honestly, I think the first story that you start with, you can start with anyone, but I found that the first story was actually pretty boring, and all the other ones were much more interesting. Especially the one with the cannibal story, because they're going to sacrifice them to the gods, and the altar that they put them on is some kind of like radio antenna or something that lightning will strike. And so there's this kind of thing that's kind of implied they're sacrificing it to Am, who's the god of that world. But yeah, once all the characters are kind of assembled at the end of the game, you are able to essentially go through the final kind of gauntlet. And so what that entails is there's a series of switches and things you need to press that will vaporize or kill the characters. And so you kind of have to learn by trial and error what things kill you, which wires are the right wires to cross. And so you definitely want to save at that point and basically figure out what to do. It's really interesting actually, because in that final point you get a lot of background on the world and what exactly happened to humanity. So essentially you have these two other AIs, this one kind of like Western AI and another one that was an Eastern AI. And so each one of them represents the kind of zeitgeist and consciousness of those parts of the world. And each one of them pretty much representing the Cold War and the two philosophies of capitalism versus communism. They essentially are part of Am's consciousness, but they also want to take him over and fight him. And so basically the final ending of the game is you get or convince the AIs to team up and essentially destroy Am and each other in the final battle and save humanity that way. And so yeah, a lot of this novels about the hubris of man, the horrors of what mankind can do, and that kind of extends to the AIs and the machines that they've created, in the sense that these machines are just a reflection of humanity in some way. Again, I liked some of the arcs of these characters. They were pretty decently written, and again, the puzzles are also pretty decent as well. Again, I just feel like the beginning is a little bit, sloppy or, just not very interesting. And it takes a while to really get started. But once it does get started, it's really, really engaging, honestly. And of course, if you fail in the final sequence and everyone, is not able to take on the AIs, Am basically finds you and gets you. And that's where you get the famous final cutscene where he turns you, he says, oh, well, you tried to rebel against me. Now your tortures are going to be worse the rest of, eternity. And so then he turns you into this giant slug thing where essentially, you basically have no mouth and you have to scream from the thing that you become, the body horror. But anyway, yeah. Also, the game is not just text, it is actually fully voice, which is very nice. It adds a real flavor to the game, and Am himself has pretty good voice acting in this game. He's very sounds a little bit nerdy and also extremely sadistic, so yeah, I think he did a really good job. And again, it's just the dialogue and writing that Am always gives is this really sadistic and very classical, I would say, and iconic dialogue that really shapes him as a very refined villain in the world of stories and video games and stuff like that. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say about this game. Again, it's a fun little thing that I think everyone should kind of try and play, and just for the sake of being more so an interactive book than an actual game. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys later. Bye.